Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey. With 1 week to go before we get the 5 free transfers, we're in a use it or lose it situation with our free transfers this week. So let's take a look at my transfer plans going into Game Week 15. Welcome back everyone to another video. I'm going to try and keep this one a little bit shorter than usual given the tight turnaround to the Game Week 15 deadline. I'm recording this on the Wednesday morning, so before a lot of the matches happen in the Wednesday evening, and of course Man United on Thursday. I used my free transfer going into Game Week 14 on Mbeumo from Saar. Now, it's very easy in hindsight to say massive mistake, should have gone with Foden. And of course, it really does look that way. Hauled yet again, 17 points. And of course, we're going to talk about him in this video as well. But fingers crossed, Mbeumo comes through and does something on Thursday night. Although I'm not holding out any hope that he's going to match Foden. In the meantime, if you did enjoy today's video, I'd massively appreciate it if you could leave a like and hit subscribe to the channel. But let's start by taking a look at how my Game Week 15 side is currently shaping up. 1 free transfer and 0.9 in the bank to use. And of course, I do really need to use that 1 free transfer because I will effectively burn it if I don't use it this week, because we all get topped up to 5 free transfers no matter what. So I might as well actually make a move this week. And of course, there are moves that I can make. In goal, Nick Pope at home to Burnley would have been amazing. I was holding on to him for exactly this kind of fixture, but it looks likely that he's going to be out for 3 weeks, which will be a significant layoff in terms of game weeks. So I'm probably going to need to make a move there. If not this week, very, very soon. But of course, we'll talk about that in a moment. And I do have the money to upgrade him if necessary. I do have Dubravka on my bench, who is a playing keeper at least, but it's not a very nice fixture away at Newcastle. Into my back line, I can make peace with all 3 of those. Lacroix, Timber, Anderson, Senesi back from his suspension at home to Chelsea. All 3 of which, and Senesi, are playable this week. Of course, the defcons really help for players like Anderson, Lacroix, and Senesi, just raising that floor a little bit. And as much as I would be tempted to make a move in my defence if I had a few more free transfers, I don't think it's a flashpoint in my team where I really need to make a move, considering the other issues in my team right now. Into the midfield, on paper, I'm pretty happy with it. Let's see what happens on Wednesday evening. There could, of course, be other injuries I need to deal with. Saka, Anderson, Fernandes, and Mbeumo, all with decent enough fixtures in Game Week 15. But of course, these transfer plans will have to change if any of them get injured tonight or tomorrow. So I'll just wait on those for now. But as it currently stands, I'm happy enough with all of them. And then up front, no doubt about it, I'm happy with both Haaland and Thiago. And again, we're just waiting to see what happens with Thiago in the Wednesday evening game. So fingers crossed he's okay. I've got a bit of bench cover with Senesi and Rodon. And of course, Dubravka helping me out if I didn't want to make a keeper move. But overall, I'm pretty well set up for this week. There are obvious players missing though. Goalkeeper is an issue. And Semenyo has yet again blanked. Did pick up defcons, but when you compare him to some of the other players at that price point, it does feel like a bit of an obvious move that could be made there. And he's not got great fixtures coming either. So with that in mind, let's take a quick look at 2 different routes, 2 different strategies that I could start off with this game week. And then it has knock-on effects in the next few game weeks as well. Okay, so transfer route number 1 was probably the one that I had in the back of my mind before we hit the Game Week 14 deadline. Basically saying, right, I've got 1 free transfer to come in Game Week 15. Pope will be an issue. I can probably survive Game Week 14 with Dubravka against Crystal Palace at home. It's not ideal, but okay. But then in Game Week 15, ideally, if there were no other issues with my side, I'd move Nick Pope on to probably David Raya. There are other goalkeepers. I could look at downgrading it to Verbruggen, but I don't think that that's a high upside move. And to be honest, Pope to Raya probably isn't high upside either. At least I've got a playing keeper who will get a baseline of points over the next couple of game weeks. That being said, Arsenal defence is very, very strong. It would give me double Arsenal defence again with Timber and Raya. And although the upside isn't that high on Raya, we're never really expecting more than 6 points. He is expected on average to be getting about a 40% chance of a clean sheet in any given game across this entire period. That's far better than any other keeper. So it's boring, and I completely understand that. But if I've got the money, and there are no other keepers that I'm massively confident in, then Nick Pope to Raya just seems like a very easy move to immediately give me a couple extra points a week over having to play Dubravka, which I think is fair enough. That being said, as obvious as this move might be, There is another route that I'm looking at now, which would postpone the keeper transfer, and that might have to wait. I'll explain that in a little bit, but it would undoubtedly give me potentially much higher upside. And I'm sure you know which way I'm going with this. Okay, so the obvious other transfer that I'm sure every other content creator, every other YouTuber is going to be at least considering this week is Semenyo out for Phil Foden. Now, I do have the money to do this with one free transfer, so that's not an issue. However, if I did make this move, it would block me from doing Pope up to Raya the following game week. So I'd have to kick that transfer down the road a little bit further and make it a bit later on when I've found funds elsewhere. So there are repercussions to me making this upside move. And I've also included Yankuba Minter as a replacement for Semenyo on this graphic, who I also really like. The data's not quite as good, but he is quite a lot cheaper. I think 1.5 million cheaper at time of recording. And he's got 2 good fixtures in the next 4. Arguably, the Liverpool fixture isn't that bad either, but West Ham at home, Sunderland at home, both do not scream points necessarily, but they are good fixtures for attacking returns, you would think. And he's got good home fixtures after that as well. And of course, by downgrading Semenyo to Minter, I could immediately upgrade Nick Pope to Raya next game week with my 5 free transfers. So that would be an easy move. However, Phil Foden is sat right there and I can make that move with 1 free transfer. It will be incredibly popular. And as much as I don't like thinking about it in these terms, he will be a massive threat to my rank week on week if I don't make this move soon. And I do think he does really well. As annoying as it is, as obvious as the other transfer is, I think the upside is there on Phil Foden. He does go through these hot patches of form where he's almost unstoppable, where Pep will be reluctant to take him out of the side. He gets 90 minutes a match. He's playing as a shadow striker off of Erling Haaland at the moment, which we've seen in the past. It's not a new thing. He does go through these runs where he plays just off of Haaland. He gets plenty of shots. The XG is massively skewing upwards in the last few game weeks. Even before the 2 braces in a row, his underlying data was starting to improve and the minutes were already there. If we remove all of the underlying data, all of that stuff, even on the eye, he's banging form. And I can make this move with 1 free transfer. And with Sunderland at home next, Crystal Palace isn't easy, but then West Ham at home, Forest away, and the run goes on after that. Is it just such an obvious move that I'd regret not making it this week? And a keeper move would get me probably an extra 2 or 3 points a game week. Maybe not quite that much, but a couple of extra points a game week maybe. With this one, the ceiling is really there. There's massive upside potential on Semenyo to Foden. Now, I don't want to completely rule out the idea that Semenyo could also haul. He's been incredibly frustrating, hasn't got a return in his last 6 game weeks now, but the data's still not that bad. We think he's on penalties if Kluivert's not on the pitch. And the next 2 fixtures aren't great, but Burnley at home followed by Brentford away in 17 and 18 are good fixtures. So am I just points chasing here? And please do let me know in the comments below whether or not this is just really knee-jerk, really reactionary to 2 braces from Foden, or does this indicate a change in the form of Foden, and will he become a much more effective FPL player over the next few game weeks? Have we already seen that change? I have a sneaky feeling we do, and I think the upside is there. And as annoying and as template as this move might be, I'm also tempted to make it. However, in my position, it's probably not as easy or obvious as with some other people. So let me map out the next few weeks in terms of if I made this move versus the other route, the boring route of going with Raya in for Nick Pope. Okay, so what I thought I'd do here is just map out the next 3 game weeks and the repercussions of making the 2 different transfers this week. So with route number 1, top of screen, that would be Foden in this game week, Sunderland at home, but it does mean that I have to rely on Dubravka away at Newcastle, which is nowhere near as good as Raya away at Aston Villa. Of course, Aston Villa is not an easy game for Arsenal, but they are a fantastic defence. They can keep a clean sheet in any game week. So in game week 15, it's Foden against Sunderland, Dubravka against Newcastle, goes up against Semenyo against Chelsea, Raya against Aston Villa. Game week 16, we get the 5 free transfers. In the first route, I probably buy Verbruggen just for a couple of game weeks, and I actually put him on my bench for game week 16. But remember, because we'll be topped up to 5 free transfers, if I don't use that 1 free transfer in that game week, then I'll burn it anyway. So I might as well buy Verbruggen that week to bench him, and then with the intention of playing him in game week 17 when he's got Sunderland at home. But of course, in that game week in 16, it would be Foden away at Palace and Dubravka at home to Fulham, which actually probably isn't that bad. In game week 16, in the other route, it would be Semenyo away at United, arguably not too bad, and then Raya at home to Wolves, which is a very good fixture, probably a 50% chance of a clean sheet, if not higher, in that fixture. So obvious downgrade, Dubravka versus Raya there. In game week 17, again, I'll have 5 free transfers. In route 1, I would probably be buying Semenyo or Minter. So Semenyo could come back in for Burnley at home, or Minter could come back in for... is it Sunderland at home? It is Sunderland at home, yes. Verbruggen was the giveaway there. But either could come in, and then that would be for Mbeumo, who will go off to AFCON. So by game week 17, my 2 midfielders in this whole combination scenario would be Foden and Semenyo in both combinations. But then with game week 17 in mind, it would be Verbruggen at home to Sunderland or Raya at home to Everton. If we just move this on another game week, I could then buy Raya in option number 1 in game week 18, because I would have the money from downgrading Mbeumo to Semenyo in game week 17. I'm sorry if I'm losing you there. It does get a little bit complicated. But basically, by game week 18, I will have the exact same combination of players with Raya in there. But these 3 game weeks are where I'm either exposed by having a less than great keeper in 3 game weeks, so Dubravka in 2 and Verbruggen in 1 of them, or in option B, I'm exposed by not having Foden for 15 and 16. But then I also have the advantage of Raya during that time, and then also Raya in 17, as well as Foden, who's an easy transfer in for Mbeumo by that time. So it's, do I go for 2 more game weeks without Phil Foden, but I also am able to have Raya because of that? Or do I go for 3 more game weeks without Raya, but I get Phil Foden and I just have to make peace with Dubravka for a couple of them and maybe Verbruggen or another keeper for an extra game week in game week 17? It does mean two free transfers used on keepers in the first option, but given that if I didn't make those moves, I'd be burning transfers, I think that's okay. Anyway, let me know what you think of the 2 different combinations here. I do have a preferred option, so let's load that in and see how I'm shaping up for game week 15. Okay, so yeah, basically, as far as I'm currently thinking, I think there's higher upside in moving out Semenyo for Foden. It could come back to bite me. Semenyo could absolutely return against Chelsea and against Man United, but crucially, I would still have a plan to get back to him by game week 17 for that Burnley fixture. Or, worst case scenario, I could go for Yankuba Minter, who's easily accessible with a good fixture that game week as well. But I do just have a gut feeling that if I don't get Foden soon, I'm going to miss the boat on him. I've got a bit of a history of missing the boat and missing the hauls on Foden. And when he goes through this little patch of form, which he's done in the past as well, there's almost no stopping him. The only doubt I've got about this, I suppose 2. 1, Dubravka away at Newcastle is awful. Or, okay, maybe not awful, but not great at all. But after this game week, the keepers are probably okay. I can get by with Dubravka against Fulham, then Verbruggen against Sunderland. That's probably okay, although not as good as Raya. But the other problem is Foden has been getting 90 minutes a match for quite a while now. And is there just an ever so slight doubt about his minutes against Sunderland? Could there be a rotation? Could there be reduced minutes? If there are, then this would be a horrific transfer to make, given that Raya is right there, and I can just make that move very, very easily. So I'm only going to make this move if I'm absolutely certain on Phil Foden's minutes going into game week 15. I'm currently like 95% sure he'll start, given that he is just a fitness monster and he's in the form of his career right now. Pep loves him. He's so important to everything Man City are doing, and they can't afford to drop points either. Sunderland won't be an easy game, so I think he probably plays and then misses out maybe in the Champions League in the midweek after. But there's obviously a risk. There is a chance. But I suppose I've got Senesi on my bench if I need to. Anyway, this is what I'm currently thinking. I will hold off on my transfer for now because, of course, I've got a lot of players left to play in game week 14. And let's say Saka gets injured or Mbeumo or Fernandes gets injured, then I can keep Semenyo and I can just move in Phil Foden for one of them instead. And actually, with a few of those different moves, it would also allow me to get to Raya in game week 16 as well. So not that I'm hoping they get injured, but it could open up other pathways. So let's wait and see how the rest of game week 14 go. And hopefully everything I've said made sense. In the meantime, if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel, that would be greatly appreciated. Drop a comment below with your own transfer dilemmas. And of course, let me know whether you prefer the boring keeper route or should I attack the upside on Phil Foden.